what's consuming a bunch of time for people that's not ultimately very valuable that could be augmented with AI? And what's bringing value into the organization, either through more revenue, through cost savings, through better customer experience? Like, it's really looking at how the organization itself works and then saying, okay, now we've got this new thing that we can apply to it. We've got Thor's hammer. How do we use it? That's always our focus. It's not really on the nitty gritty of which LLM or so on and so forth, right? Because they all do it pretty well. And of course, caveats, there's special scenarios where you do need to focus on that stuff. I'm not really talking about those. 95% of scenarios, OpenAI stuff's going to work.
Are you a scaling SaaS founder? Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those you don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where harnessing AI's power means transforming data into direction and possibility into performance. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. What if a leadership book and a Netflix drama had a baby? My new book, The Captain's Keys, is exactly that. Storms, emotional wreckage, and a surprisingly practical leadership system that one CEO called the owner's manual I've been wanting for 20 years. After working with over 1,000 top performing leaders and CEOs, discovered 4 game-changing relationships that turn leadership chaos into sustainable success. Get some bonuses when you pre-order today for an August 4th release and discover which critical support pieces you've been missing all along. How do you lead when your newest team member isn't human, but it's outperforming half your staff? AI isn't coming, it's already here. And in this episode, we dive into what it really looks like when digital labor becomes operational reality. From customer support to internal workflows, AI is no longer a side project. It's a strategic asset changing how modern businesses run. We explore the leap from novelty to necessity, where tools like ChatGPT aren't just assisting, they're rivaling mid-level talent. But it's not about flipping the switch. It's about building with intention, structure, and purpose, turning hype into something useful and scalable. You'll also hear how this shift is redefining roles, challenging old frameworks like Agile, and forcing leaders to rethink team dynamics, training, and output. Spoiler alert, the best results come when humans and AI are designed to collaborate, not compete. If you're still treating AI like a plugin instead of a strategic pillar, this episode will show you how to reframe your approach and lead the change with clarity. Let's get into it. Our expert guest last Thursday was Carson Aslam. Named one of the top 50 digital marketing thought leaders in the US, Carson's a serial entrepreneur with 2 successful exits and multiple 7- and 8-figure ventures under his belt. In his episode, we dove into how strategic delegation, smart hiring, and a lean mindset can drive exponential growth. Carson also shared what most founders overlook when building scalable teams and what it really takes to find top-tier talent. And our founder last week was Scott Cate. Scott is an internet innovator who's seen the tech world evolve from floppy disk to the cloud. Scott's revolutionizing how marketers think about link management through his latest venture, 301.pro. In his episode, Scott opened up about 30 years of lessons learned from engineering breakthroughs to startup pivots and how legacy experience fuels his latest innovations. If you missed either episode, go back and check it out. My guest today is Aaron Godby. Aaron is the founder and CEO of Green Irony, an AI consulting powerhouse dedicated to delivering lasting business impact through intelligent automation. His mission? Strip away all the fluff around AI. And we all know there's a bunch of that, right? Pull that fluff away and implement real operational game changers, particularly with Salesforce's Agentforce platform. Aaron and his team are pioneering the rise of the digital labor workforce, helping companies rethink productivity and scale human labor with strategic AI. Welcome, Aaron Godby. Hey, Aaron, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Hey, good to meet you, Jeff.
You're at the intersection of AI consulting and enterprise operations, which is pretty awesome. What led you to found Green Irony, and how's your background shaped your approach so far?
Great question. And I think my background's a little different than most in the Salesforce ecosystem. So I got my
Yes.
start. I got my start in engineering. So I worked the first 7, 8 years of my career in IBM here in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina, in the middleware space on some early Java solutions called WebSphere. Did the R&D thing for a while. Eventually got bored of the long development cycles and not really getting a chance to see my work come to life. So I moved into services after that. 2012, we did a lot of work in mobile. If you remember, that was back in the day when you used to have to pinch zoom around your screen, try to add things to
Yeah.
shopping carts, a mess. So we were tasked with fixing that mess. And around the tail end of my time at that company, which was called Point Source, I discovered the Salesforce platform. And at Point Source, we were doing a lot of custom app development. So ERP,
Okay.
CRMs, what have you, fully custom solutions built on open source, IBM, AWS, what have you. And I quickly realized we could build this same thing a lot quicker, get customers value a lot quicker, a lot cheaper through the Salesforce platform. So that's really what led me to found Green Irony.
Very cool. And you work a lot with Agent Force. For listeners that are maybe unfamiliar with that, what is the platform and how are you using it to deliver digital labor?
Yeah, so Agent Force is Salesforce's agentic AI platform. It snaps right into the existing Salesforce platform, which makes it pretty powerful because a lot of the high value human workflows live on the Salesforce platform. Things like sales, support, some things for external users for self service. There's already a pretty good consolidation of those things on Salesforce. So when you
Mm-hmm.
start to snap an agent into something that has access to that type of data and to those types of workflows, it starts to become really powerful. And it's a platform that allows us really, just like Salesforce back when I founded things in 2016, it lets us do more with less a lot more quickly because we've built agentic AI in a custom fashion by integrating with solutions like OpenAI. And there's a lot of things that have to happen behind the scenes for you to get reliable outputs from these agents. And Salesforce has really taken care of those for us. So we just focus on the use cases, the scenarios, the value, and ultimately, what is that job description of that agent? What is it meant to accomplish? And if you start thinking of it through the lens of a job description, just like you would do for a human employee, things
Yeah.
start to get a lot more clear.
Yeah. I think that it's interesting thinking about AI employees and agents and things like that. And ultimately, we want that consistent output. How do we get that? Or maybe how do we know that we can trust that the output is going to be consistent, that the productivity is going to be consistent?
Yeah, there's several ways. I think I'll caveat with there's always going to be some level of inconsistency because
Sure.
of the
With people too.
absolutely. Yeah, that is exactly where I was going with this. For me, it's about can the agent provide at least an equivalent answer to what your middle of the road employee would provide? And for us, the answer has been a big yes. In fact, in most cases, it's answering more quickly and more accurately than most of the support teams that we've worked with, and enables them to then go and provide more of a white glove type of support experience versus answering questions that they then have to go look up in a knowledge base, they'd have to go search a website. This kind of takes those tasks off their plates and lets them focus on higher value activities.
I like that. And pretty significant improvement as well. Reducing support headcount, for example, and improving customer satisfaction. What types of gains can we see, or what type of reduction? What type of additional productivity, maybe, is a better way to ask that?
Yeah, good question. I'll caveat this one too with a lot of it's theoretical at this point. Agent Force just launched last October, so the adoption is just now starting to get there.
Okay.
But what we typically see, because we were in there on day one in October, as soon as it GA'd and they're implementing solutions, we'll see 50% deflection right out of the gate pretty easily.
Wow.
And that's just with a simple solution that plugs into a knowledge base. Because the way I like to think about it is it's the same as training a human employee, only you're training like that. You're just giving it access to the knowledge base, and it immediately knows everything in there and is able to answer questions as long as it's prompted the right way. Once you have that initial simple implementation that's just knowledge based, you can start to expand on its job description. You can give it access to external systems and the data that lives within them and the actions that live within them. And at that point, it's essentially just as equipped as one of your new hires would be after training. So it can go and handle all that stuff for you. And I think customers eventually are going to see, instead of that 50%, they'll start to see 80%, 90%, maybe even 95%, where all of a sudden your overtaxed human support agents are able to really focus on those niche scenarios that really need a human to go in and dig in, provide that type of support that only a human can provide, and provide that type of decision making only a human can provide. So it's a really exciting time for me.
Without a doubt. I think it's really interesting just having access to that data. And just like you said, they're at the point where a human would be new hire after training, but they don't forget. They really retain everything that they've been taught, where humans, we kind of leak information. It goes in and it goes out. So I think that's interesting, but then it continues to learn. And so but it always has access to all of that. So it never forgets.
That's right. Yeah. As soon as you plug the knowledge base in, as soon as you ground it with whatever data is appropriate, that's what it's using to formulate its responses. So it doesn't need to remember anything. It's already been trained.
Yeah.
And the context windows are getting so big that it's retaining everything from that conversation as well, and able to also leverage that as part of its responses and as part of its actions. So it's just been pretty cool to see somebody that's been in technology since I graduated in 2005. We just have never had a tool like this in our arsenal. So it changes the way you look at everything.
It does. And the context window you mentioned, that is something that I've seen over certainly last year, but even the last 2 years, just how much more context and how much more helpful that is in every aspect of AI. Tell me, what are you seeing in that, and where do you see that going?
Yeah, it seems like Moore's law on steroids almost, where it
Yeah.
continues to increase. When we were first looking at building things like agents, it was 2 years ago or so. Let's call it within 6 months of ChatGPT launching, we started kicking the tires on the API, seeing what we could do with it. We had to create a lot of workarounds as engineers to get around the context window stuff. We don't really have to do that anymore. We can feed it whatever information it needs to get the right response, both through prompting and context. The RAG capabilities have gotten a lot better. So it just seems like it's on a steady upward, possibly even exponential climb as far as the knowledge that you can provide to the AI agent to get the best possible answer. So for me, if I'm looking forward, I make the assumption I can give it anything.
That's amazing. And it has exponential is definitely the right word, and just how fast AI has grown. Let's rewind to the start. How did you know that this was a real opportunity then, and not just another wave of AI hype or just some sort of pie in the sky someday thing?
Yeah, good. I think for us, just as soon as we first saw ChatGPT, started kicking the tires on that, just the quality of the responses I was getting, and then knowing from doing a lot of listening to podcasts of folks that are heavily engaged in AI, like Sam Altman, just seeing the writing on the wall of how fast these things were advancing. To me, it became pretty clear that sooner rather than later, the types of outputs they were going to be able to generate would be at least as good as, again, a mid-level type of resource that has that knowledge, that's an SME in that area. So let's say somebody at 10 years into their career. And nowadays, no matter what topic I'm picking, I pretty much find that to be the case. So for us, again, like as technologists, it's okay, now all of a sudden we have this new tool in our tool belt. We've never had anything close to this before. It's like we all of a sudden got Thor's hammer or something.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, the writing's on the wall. Things are not going to be done the way that they were before because now we do have Thor's hammer. So we need to learn as much as we can about this and how to apply it, how to add value. both to our own organization and to our customers, because that's where things are going to go.
Very cool. What was some of maybe the most difficult early challenges? Messaging, hiring, closing first few enterprise clients. What did that all look like?
Yeah, there's still kind of hesitancy even today with either folks thinking it's hype, some of the early issues with data leakage, like the Samsung thing that happened really early
Oh yeah,
on.
that was big.
It was, and they're right to be concerned, right? Because
Yeah.
it's sensitive intellectual property that leaked.
Sometimes oops just doesn't cut it.
Exactly. What do you do at that point?
Yeah.
You can't.
Change your keys.
Yeah, you've opened Pandora's box. Um, so there's still some of that, and it's still relatively new. A lot of folks are looking for good use cases to apply it to. So that's always an interesting conversation because the use cases are everywhere. It's anything that somebody does that's consuming
Yeah.
time could potentially be applied. And then I think there's a lot of players in the industry. There's a lot of mixed messaging coming from different software vendors and different sources. So I think some customers are just having difficulty sorting through that hype. So for us, the way we typically overcome that is it's easier to show somebody. So let's show you what this can do for you. Let's show you what it can do in a really high value scenario. And we've had a lot of success that way in getting people engaged and getting them to understand what this can do for them. And I've got some good examples of that if you're interested.
Sure, absolutely.
So the most recent one that comes to mind, we do a lot of work in higher education. And whatever you think of the policies that are happening right now, it doesn't matter, right? They are impacting higher ed. That's a headline. Sure. So their revenue is getting almost changed overnight through lack of grants, through some of the stuff that's happening with admissions, et cetera. And that's two of the three main ways they get revenue. The last one is alumni donations. So on the grant writing side, what we found is a lot of the smaller institutions have maybe one person that's responsible for going and manually scrubbing the web, looking for these grant applications that are really complicated, trying to figure out if it's relevant to them, and ultimately applying to something that's really time consuming to apply to. So we built an AI solution to go and scrub the web, crawl all the grants that are available, categorize them by a relevancy score for a specific institution, and allow them to stack rank them, figure out which ones they want to apply to, and then help them apply via AI as well. Because once we know what that institution does, it's just context about the institution, and then it's the question, and then how do we answer that question the most effectively for that organization to potentially win the grant. And that's big for some of these colleges because right now they need to apply for more because the revenue's kind of in question. So the more of these they can apply for and the more relevant, the better for them. And it's something that they don't have the budgets to go and hire an army of people to go and do this.
Oh, that is a great use case.
It's been pretty well received, yeah. And we're having a lot of demos. We're getting a lot of great feedback. And my hope is that it helps them through a challenging time via technology that just wouldn't have been possible 2 years ago.
Yeah. Is that something that's available for nonprofits as well, or is it specifically for higher ed?
Yeah, nonprofits as well. You could even think of for-profits that do a lot of RFPs as part of winning opportunities and bringing in revenue. It's kind of that same model.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That would be a huge time saver as well. That's RFPs are an absolute time suck, and a lot of times low percentage. But that really changes the game if you could scrape those and come up with answers and respond intelligently in a really quick way.
Absolutely.
Much more viable.
Yeah. I've unfortunately done my fair share of RFPs in the day. So I've got some scar tissue myself. And something like this to me is a game changer for anybody that pulls in revenue via RFPs or grants or something that's a similar nature where you're answering questions specific to you and why you should win.
Yeah.
It's fairly straightforward to go and build an AI or go and leverage an AI model to do that for you.
What's maybe one mistake you made building Green Irony that now you view as necessary? It may be painful, but you look back and you go, we had to go through that to get where we are today.
That's a great question.
What if a leadership book and a Netflix drama had a baby? That is The Captain's Keys, Storms, Emotional Wreckage, and a surprisingly practical leadership system that one CEO called the owner's manual and never got for 20 years of leadership. Here is the brutal truth. You're probably drowning in LinkedIn connections while starving for real relationships. I hear it all the time. Most leaders are exhausted from playing the lone hero, and it's killing both your results and your sanity. The Captain's Keys reveals a new leadership framework, the stability matrix, four specific relationships that prevent burnout while multiplying your impact. And this isn't just theory. It's a system that I've used to scale companies and taught over 1,000 executive leaders. So grab your copy today at thecaptainskeys.com, Amazon, or choose your own adventure, print, ebook, or audio. Stop drowning alone and build your stability matrix.
So let's see, we started as a Salesforce shop. So the core Salesforce technology, which is basically CRM, it's service, it's a portal called Experience Cloud, and then you can layer things on top of it. In 2018, they bought a product called MuleSoft, and that's used to connect external systems together and ultimately make them work in harmony.
Okay.
This one's more on the business side than the technology side, but I think we underestimated the price sensitivity of customers buying MuleSoft.
Hmm.
That was because it changed, right? They did things a certain way before the acquisition and a
Okay.
couple years into it. And then after that, it got a lot more price sensitive to the point where we're US only and we have a lot of experienced people. Those experienced people have salaries that are essentially line up with that experience. So we got priced out, and I think we realized it a little too late. And it was a hard lesson.
Wow.
But nowadays, we've done so much work on the organization and we've done so much work investing in software solutions driven by large language models that we can now compete there again. So it was a lesson we had to go through, but now we're coming out of the other side. We've got a lot of great IP and we have somewhat of a competitive advantage because we can build things the quality that we always have, essentially that only big enterprises, $1 billion+ companies could afford. But now we can do it a lot quicker and a lot more cost effective. And we would have had to go through that in order to be able to do that.
Yeah. What are maybe some of the other lessons you learned in building the company?
The biggest ones are around people, roles, responsibilities, scale. I had a great advisor that I met in 2021 named Scott that came in and taught me a lot of things you just don't know as a technical founder around management, scaling organizations, keeping people accountable, keeping people motivated. So to me, those were the biggest lessons because I came in with the technology background already, but there's a
Yeah.
lot that you don't know when you're building a company from scratch. And I've been able to learn those over the last few years. So it's just like anything, right? It's investing in relationships, building trust, keeping people accountable. There's a lot that goes into that. I think I underestimated as a founder right out of the gate. I was thinking just, yeah, we're great at providing technology solutions. Of course, people are going to want to buy those.
Right. If I build it, they will come.
Yes, that is not necessarily the case. And then lesson two also goes into this, and that's around go to market strategies, the value of sales, so on and so forth. Because at our last that I mentioned, the mobile startup, we were right place, right time. Essentially, there wasn't a lot of competition. We were lined up with IBM in the mobile space. We were really the only game in town. So I think I was involved in those sales processes from a technical perspective, but there's just a lot more that goes into it when you're in a competitive space like the Salesforce ecosystem. I
Sure.
think I had to learn those lessons, and out of the gate, I wasn't necessarily prepared for those.
Yeah. Any concerns about connecting your technology to an ecosystem, whether it be Salesforce in your case or lots of other ones out there as well? But sometimes companies want to diversify and they want to play in multiple spaces or that kind of thing. I think there's benefit to both. I'm curious how you see it.
I see it the same way. There's trade offs.
Yeah.
If you're able to consolidate on one thing, everything gets a lot more faster, or a lot faster as far as your time to market, costs go
Yeah.
down, everything gets simpler. but you are locked into that one thing. And that can have disadvantages for licensing. That can have disadvantages if they don't have the capabilities you need. There's a trade-off there. With
Yeah,
Salesforce, the thing I like about it is it manages what it manages very well. It's those high value human workflows like sales support, customer engagement. It does the CX side of things great. And it's so flexible that for me as an engineer, I feel like I can do whatever I need with it.
sure.
Even if that means going outside of Agentforce, I can do that. I can integrate into OpenAI. I can use MuleSoft to pull that stuff in and orchestrate things that way. So it gives me the flexibility that I'm confident that I'm not going to get boxed in like some of the other ecosystems where it's more
Yeah.
point and click type of tool and you're rather limited in what you can do. With this, it's a full on development platform. So if you need to, you can go outside of it. So I like that
That
part.
that's a really good way to look at it. And being able to use even APIs to go out and get the information you need, and really making it feel like a seamless experience. So it's not frustrating or not limiting.
Exactly. Yeah. It's only limited by the amount of time you want to put into it. And then is the juice worth the squeeze? You can do things
Yeah.
a very simple way that maybe is not perfect, or you can go for the perfect way as long as the cost of doing so makes sense.
Are you bootstrapped, or have you raised money, or how has that influenced your approach with the growth and experimentation?
Yeah, fully bootstrapped. So, believe it or
Love
not,
that.
yeah, 2016, I put, I think it was $6,000 or something in the bank in Chicago when I was living there, and just somewhat naive, like I said before, about the amount of sales and marketing and everything necessary to make it work. But we did make it work, right? We scaled from there. We
That's awesome.
did good work, picked up clients, but at times it's more limiting than, let's say, a startup that goes and raises $10 million mid seed round and has that 10 million burning. It's a different model than that.
Yeah,
That's a all or nothing. Even either you do it or you don't. This one's more build as you go. So you're keep adding value, keep bringing in clients, keep making the clients happy, and then it snowballs. So the approach is just a bit different. I've not done the other one, but I've looked into it. I've heard a lot of stories. So ours
sure.
is fully bootstrapped.
I love that. And there are a million ways to fund companies. And raising money is certainly one of those, but that's what we hear about the most. But I always appreciate when somebody puts the time and effort and their own capital and sweat into it. And I think you build differently as well. When it's your money, the decisions that you make, the risk that you take, and there's good and bad to that as well.
That's right. Yeah, sweat was the biggest thing, honestly. So I think I I knew it'd be difficult. Anything worth doing is difficult, but I don't think I knew how much time and energy it would be. But it's ultimately rewarding and worth it.
Yeah. So if you had to do it over again, would you do it? It has been difficult, but has it been rewarding enough? Is the juice worth the squeeze?
I just had this conversation with another founder friend of mine. He asked me the same question. It was a couple of months ago at lunch. Yeah, I would. I definitely would.
That's great.
I would make different decisions with the experience I have now versus the experience I had in 2016.
Wouldn't we all?
Yeah, you could say that about, but ultimately, just the amount of learning that you get to do, the people you get to meet, the experiences you have, makes it really rewarding.
Yeah. One of the things that you said last time we talked is your greed irony cuts through the AI hype, which there is a lot of that out in the marketplace. Maybe what kind of advice would you give to a founder that's being pitched dozens of AI tools every day,
Yeah,
but maybe unsure what will actually drive outcomes?
that's a great question too. Oh, you're on fire today. Um, for me, so there tends to be a lot of talk about specific models. This new version came out, it does this a little better. This one came out, it does this a little better. Which one should we use? And people focus a lot of energy and attention on that.
Yeah.
And in some of the use cases, I don't see that as necessary because all of them do it good enough and all of them do something that didn't exist 2 years ago. So that's typically the lens that I take is where can you provide value? We can spend some time picking out the right large language model, but that's not really what you should be concerned with. It's what's consuming a bunch of time for people that's not ultimately very valuable that could be augmented with AI. And what's bringing value into the organization, either through more revenue, through cost savings, through better customer experience. Like, it's really looking at how the organization itself works and then saying, okay, now we've got this new thing that we can apply to it. We've got Thor's hammer.
Yeah.
How do we use it? That's always our focus. It's not really on the nitty gritty of which LLM or so on and so forth, because they all do it pretty well. And of course, caveats, there's special scenarios where you do need to focus on that stuff. I'm not really talking
Sure.
about those. 95% of scenarios, OpenAI stuff's going to work. So it's really about how do we nail that scenario? How do we make sure that we have the right data to ground the responses? How do we make sure we have the right actions so that the agent can actually take action within the systems? And it's not just, I hate to say just a chatbot because it's not, but it's the chatbot that can do things. It's an agent.
Yeah.
And then how do we make sure the interaction with whoever the humans are that are in the loop, how is that as seamless as possible and as painless as possible for the humans? Because that's what it's all about. It's about making their lives easier and more effective. So I think if you get those three things right and you're in the right set of use cases to drive value, that's really what our focus is. It's not on the specific technologies, the specific LLMs, et cetera. It's how are we adding value to the organization?
Yeah, you're not just replacing humans. You're really rethinking the role. How do you lead a team that's building tech with that level of philosophical and operational impact?
That's right. The cool part for me is it forces you to have to rethink everything. Like, yeah, as an example, we've got a couple of customers that are bigger enterprises and they have call centers that are anywhere from 500 people to even 2,000. If you start to think about what are those agents doing with their time, what kind of questions are they answering, and then who are we hiring, what's the training cost, what's the attrition rate, because a lot of times these things are revolving doors. You're not talking about long tenured employees. You're talking about people that maybe stick around a month or two and then the company's not really getting any value out of that. So how can you fix that situation? And then by fixing it, what does it look like in the future? Because the job of those human agents would also change because they're no longer answering 80-90% of the questions that they used to answer. How do you then train them and equip them to be successful in this new world where there's an agent in front of them? And I find it's just a similar paradigm for just about any sort of digital labor scenario you look at, where adding the digital labor changes the way that you operated before. And we're seeing that in our engineering work as well. We just had a conversation a week ago on, will agile be a thing moving forward? I don't know. But there's a lot that goes into agile that's pretty heavyweight that may not be necessary when you've got digital labor writing 80-90% of your code.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting to think about. Would you still have Scrum meetings with digital employees? Or maybe they have their own meetings.
Yeah, well,
I don't know. Can they do a stand up? I don't know. They don't have legs. It's really interesting to think about what does Agile look like going forward, or any methodology. I think everything is just fundamentally changing in technology, and it's happening really fast.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it. Mobile, social, none of that really compares. We lived through those, and at the time it felt fast. But this is just more of a game changer.
Yeah.
We've never had the ability to do these things before. So solutions that we came up with, like Agile, that solve specific problems based on how things worked back then, maybe you're not as relevant anymore. When you're able to go and use AI to iteratively build a solution, Agile is not quite as important. It's not as important to go and get everything right up front. Maybe you can get 80% right immediately and then start to iterate and then remove all that heavyweight process from the equation or replace it with something that's a little more flexible.
Yeah. What do you think the future is of digital labor, specifically as it relates to B2B SaaS? And it could be in development as well. Is it like complete redefinition of teams and workflows, or do you think it'd be more hybrid, or what does it look like?
Yeah, I think eventually, like future state, I think it looks a lot different. If we go into customer support, since that's a pretty easy one to visualize, if you're suppose you can deflect 90 or 95% of the calls that you get today, which I think is completely feasible if you have the right
Yeah,
APIs, if you have the right data, it's feasible to do that because most of the time those calls they're not tricky to answer. It's just somebody that couldn't find the answer to their question, so they're calling and they're waiting on hold.
right.
If you take a look at that scenario and all of a sudden 90-95% of the things that you were doing before are you no longer have to do, then I feel like you have to re-examine the entire workflow. What should it look like? What are the new problems that occur now that we have this in place, and how do we solve those problems, and how do we create the right process for making sure that we're consistently solving them? I think it's going to force every organization to re-examine the way that it does business, the way that it handles its processes, just across the board. It changes just about everything.
Yeah. The founders looking to explore AI specifically for customer support. That's one that I think we can all visualize pretty well. What's maybe the one question they should be asking their ops team or engineering team today to help kickstart real transformation?
The first one is, where's the data? What
Ah, that's a big one.
Yeah, what systems does the data live in, and the actions as well? If a support agent's performing actions, a lot of the time they're doing what's called swivel chair, which is accessing multiple systems with multiple
Hmm.
logins. It's a really painful process. But what are those systems where they have to either go and get data to make a decision or give the customer an answer, or whether they have to go and update? An example being like a flight change from Delta or something. What systems are they in? If I'm calling them and I'm saying I'm in Atlanta, instead of going to Tampa, I want to go to Raleigh. Can you change my flight? It's the last minute. There's typically all kinds of systems involved in something like that. We have a major airline as a client. I think we've integrated with over 50 of their systems.
Wow.
But there's so many involved behind the scenes that would be my first question. If you're looking at leveraging digital labor for support, what systems are these support agents in? What data are they looking at? What actions are they performing? And once you know that, you can start to integrate into them and make sure that you have access to the data. And that's where something like a MuleSoft comes into play, that allows you to build APIs on top of these and unlock those systems and unlock them. In a past life, it was for other systems. Now it can be for AI agents.
Yeah. It's amazing to think about just the number of systems you're talking about and how powerful that is when you can have one agent that has pretty much instant access to all of that. And the goal is to get an answer or solve a problem as quickly as possible. The experience level, the customer experience is got to be incredibly elevated at that point.
It, exactly. Yeah. Again, it's somewhat theoretical at this point, I think. But in that customer I mentioned where we built them all this functionality with MuleSoft, and they're an airline, it would be a pretty straightforward thing for them to go and add digital labor to the equation, because the bulk of the work for somebody like us that's trying to help a customer implement AI is systems integration. It's making sure you have
Yeah.
the data, it's making sure you have those actions accessible. And if you already have that, it's just about a snap into that scenario with something like Agentforce. You still have to test it, you still have to configure the right behavior, you have to make sure you give it the right actions. There's a big test effort involved to make sure you trust it. But if you have that integration framework in place already, you're basically ready to go with that agent, and its job description can start to expand and expand based on the integrations that you have accessible to you.
Exciting times. Where can people learn more about you and about Green Irony online?
Greenirony.com. Yeah, they can. So we've got a blog with lots of information on AI, lots of speculation, information, and everything in between. Several use cases, customer stories, and I'm happy to chat with anybody as well. And that's how you learn. I don't know everything. I'm learning every day. This stuff's changing.
We all are.
Yeah, happy to chat.
Awesome. And love the AI hat as well. If you're just listening, he's got an awesome hat that says AI in green, maybe a little green irony
That's
on
right.
top.
Yeah. We had these made for a
And
conference we did a couple of months ago.
awesome. Larry, and thanks for being on SaaS Fuel.
Jeff, thank you. I appreciate it. Great discussion.
Thanks again, Aaron, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and insights. You can learn more about Aaron and Green Irony at greenirony.com. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And be sure to check us out on YouTube as well. We have full video episodes, shorts, reels, outtakes, training, lots more stuff over there. And that's at Champion Leadership on YouTube. Thought leaders share. I bet you're a thought leader because you're here. Share this episode with your smartest friend. It's one of those conversations they will want to rewind and dissect. Everyone who shares this week gets a fast pass to the pre-market kingdom, where your MVP reigns, bugs are banished, and all users leave 5-star reviews, eventually. What happens when your sales pipeline isn't just weak, it's non-existent? Next week, we have Christy Jones, a sales accountability expert with over 20 years of experience turning anemic SaaS pipelines into revenue-producing machines. As the author of Selling Your Way In, Christy helps B2B sales pros discover their superpowers and match them with roles that align with their strengths. She is the secret weapon behind many startup sales turnarounds, and she's ready to share the blueprint. Our founder next week is Sri Ganesan, co-founder and CEO of Rocket Lane, the onboarding platform transforming customer experience. A passionate CX advocate and SaaS builder, Sri previously co-founded Conator, which was acquired by Freshworks and evolved into Fresh Chat. He brings deep insights into startup growth, customer obsession, and building scalable platforms that become essential to enterprise success. I will see you next time, and as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/saasfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.